Hello and welcome members and officers to this council meeting, planning meeting, first one of January 2024. Fantastic, isn't it? We've actually made it to another year. I'm Councillor Tony Gillies, the chairman of this committee, and I'm not quite sure where the live stream actually feeds to. Does it actually feed to the other side of the world in Australia? Because if it does, I'd like to say a very happy birthday to my youngest daughter, my little girl, who was born 30 years ago today. So happy birthday, Victoria. Now, this meeting is being web streamed to the public through the Council's YouTube channel. During the meeting, when asked to speak, please use the push-to-talk button on the microphone in front of you. This will allow the camera to pan in your general direction and everyone to hear you. Before we begin the formal agenda, I'm obliged to read out the following fire notice. There is no fire drill scheduled in the building this evening. If the fire alarm sounds, then please could I ask that you make your way out of the building, down the main staircase and out of the main doors of the Town Hall and congregate at the entrance to Caldecott Park. An officer of the Council will give instructions when it is safe to return to the building. Moving on to the agenda, the first business is to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of December. All those in favour, please show. So that's unanimous. Thank you. Second item is to receive apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence?
No, Chair, there are no apologies. Everyone is present.
They're on their very best behaviour. Thank you very much for all attending. Second item is to declaration of interest, to receive declaration of interest as defined by the Council's Code of Conduct for councillors. Have we got any non-pecuniary? No. None. Any pecuniary? None. And notice of the Section 106 Local Governments Finance Act 1992, non-payment of community charge or council tax. Okay. Right. We'll move on then to item number 4, which is applications for consideration. We've got Paul Varnish to present.
This application has been reported to Planning Committee for determination because the proposed development falls within a definition of major development. It is a full planning application for the erection of 25 dwellings with associated access, car parking and landscaping. This presentation is read in conjunction with the committee report and documents submitted within the planning application. The application site is located outside of the urban area within the open countryside and the Dunsmore ward. The site was last used for office use by an insurance company. The company vacated the site and has moved to new premises within Rugby. The site originally comprised of a large 2-storey building and a collection of outbuildings. However, they have now been demolished. Regarding the site context, to the east of the site along the Ashbourne Road is the established residential area of Hillmorton, and to the west the village of Dunchurch. To the south of the site is the Rangebrook Valley. To the north is the Rugby urban area, to include the new residential development, Paddocks Rise, and the established residential area of Overslade. To the north is the town centre, which is approximately 1.5 miles away. Sorry. The proposed development will provide 25 residential units to include 20 market houses and 5 affordable dwellings. The 20 market houses are a mix of 2 and 2.5 storey, 2, 3, 4 and 5 bed dwellings. Policy H1 states that a mix of market houses and types should be provided consistent with the latest strategic housing market assessment. The development does not strictly adhere to the suggested housing mix as there are no 1-bed properties. However, the agent has provided information to support the application which suggests that there is little demand for 1-bedroom properties due to factors including the need for additional room for home working. The agent also advises that there is a shortfall of larger 5-bedroom properties. The affordable dwellings are all single-storey and either 1 or 2 bedroomed. Policy H2 informal housing mix is also guided by the strategic housing market assessment, with the development providing the required 20% of affordable housing. The table provides a guide to the recommended mix of properties. The initial scheme provided a single apartment block. However, the housing team had concerns regarding maintenance of communal areas and whether the two-bedroom units could accommodate a family of 4. The applicant has amended the scheme to provide 5 detached dwellings with their own gardens. The two-bedroom properties can accommodate a family of 4. Although the proposed mixed housing does not adhere to the policy, the housing team has advised that there is a strategic need for one-bedroom properties. The agents provide evidence from the Housing and Economic Development Need Assessment advising that the greatest need is for 2-bed units. The affordable housing will also be on site and will be grouped together to allow for easier management. Generally, the council will prefer social or affordable rented properties. However, no recommended registered providers have shown an interest, and where they have, the low volume of dwellings would be below the required number of interest. The council has shown interest in requiring the units. The final details will be negotiated within the Section 106 process. If not, the dwellings will be provided as discounted market sales housing. The units will be retained in perpetuity as affordable housing, which will be agreed within the Section 106 agreement. The Planning Authority have received representation from neighbouring residents regarding the impact on landscape to include the Rainsbrook Valley. In response, the landscape visual assessment submitted with the previous application concluded that the development would lead to a change to the landscape, including the impacts on landscape character, receptors and vegetation. However, these changes would not entail any unacceptable landscape effect. The previous scheme was assessed against the Rainsbrook Valley Landscape Sensitive Study of 2017, as the development will be situated on a similar footprint to the previous approved scheme and will be of a similar scale and massing. It's considered that development will have no greater impact on the landscape regarding the visual setting. There's concerns about development being speculative housing. The application site is previously developed land with previous planning approval located within a sustainable area. Highway safety to include the new Ashland Road development, the site's secondary access and adjacent farm access. Highways have been consulted. Highway safety and impact will be discussed later in the presentation. Shortage of services, bus services, doctors, schools, kindergarten, post boxes and hospital services at Rugby. These issues will generally fall outside the planning remit. The bridleway has been diverted and has no signage. There is no bridleway within the application site, although a bridleway does run adjacent to the application site to the west and within the new Paddocks Rise residential development. Later representation was received regarding the affordable units. It was concluded that the units will not be integrated into development and will not provide an inclusive and mixed community. The units are single storey and served by separate accesses. Sorry, that should have said it was considered that the units. The housing team were consulted and requested changes to the affordable units, resulting in the units being changed from a single apartment block to detached units with their own gardens. The units are grouped together to allow for easier management. The secondary access is existing and has been utilised. We've also received representation from Councillor Bennett, who's provided the following comments. The impact on the views from the Rainsbrook Valley, further development that may impact on the local landscape character of the area. Any new applications will be assessed on their own merit, with the impact on landscaping being an important material planning consideration. The location of the development does not encourage a move away from cars to public transport, general modal shift to electric vehicle public transport and cycling, and access to public transport. In response, Ashland Road is on a bus route which includes the A8, 8 and 11 services, and is also a dedicated cycle route. There is pedestrian access to shops and services to include the town centre. The increase in traffic highway safety, consideration has been given to a right turn filter from Ashland Road. The Highway Authority have been consulted and will have considered highway safety and whether there is a need to reconfigure the highway. And there's also a request for committee to defer the application for a site visit to address these concerns. The key issues to consider when determining this application are the principle of development, promoting a healthy, safe and inclusive community, provision of open space, sports facilities and recreation, dwelling type and tenure, character and design, residential amenity, highway safety, parking, environmental health to include air quality, flooding and drainage, landscape and ecology. There are also other matters which need to be addressed via a legal agreement. Regarding the principle of development, the application site is located within the open countryside, adjacent to the urban edge, which is the main focus and most sustainable location for all development in the borough, providing residents with good access to recreational facilities, employment, local shops, services, schools and community facilities. The site is approximately 2.5 kilometres, which is 1.5 miles away from the town centre as the crow flies. The site is previously developed land where redevelopment will be supported, providing it does not result in any unacceptable impact on visual amenity, biodiversity or the potential intensification of the land. There is currently a live application on site, outline application R16-2333 and reserve matter application R20-0213 for a retirement village which provides a fallback position. The proposal will result in an effective reuse of previously developed land in accordance with paragraph 124 within the updated NPPF, and it's considered that this carries weight in favour of the development. For comparison, the top illustration depicts the original site location plan for development at Inwood's House. Sorry, that was the original Inwood's House, which is circled in blue. The middle plan illustrates the approved extant scheme under planning reference R16-2333 and R20-0213. And then the bottom picture is the current application. Regarding scale and density, the extant live permission and current scheme are comparable. The development, once completed, will utilise the whole site. The proposed development is of the lowest density and will provide a range of residential units to include 1, 2 and 2.5 storey properties and between 1 and 5 bedrooms. Each property will have its own private car parking, either hard standing in garages or a combination of the two, an electric charging point and refuse store. Vehicle access to the site is via the existing 2 accesses off Ashlon Road. The existing internal access road, access via the primary access, will be retained with access to individual properties for vehicles and pedestrians via secondary roads. The site will include an integrated landscaping scheme and will retain an area of green infrastructure, open space and ponds to the rear of the site. The open space forms part of the existing green infrastructure network corridor. The car parking, refuse stores and cycle stores have been positioned to appear less prominent, with the boundary treatment and landscaping ensuring there is a positive impact on the visual amenity of the street scene. In terms of design and appearance, the above is an illustration of the proposed development. The dwellings have been designed to maximise natural lighting whilst providing solar shade into large areas of glazing. The use of balconies creates flow between internal and external spaces and adds depth to the facades. The scale and massing of the dwellings is acceptable. The variation in ridge heights and reduced ridge heights by lowering the eaves across the site and the use of flat roof elements helps to reduce the appearance of mass. The lower density and narrow forms also allow for natural light into the centre of the plan and reduces dependency on artificial lighting. The properties are individual appearance but linked together with the use of materials and similar design features to large gable roofs, glazing, balconies, single-storey links and a complementary material palette. The applicant has provided a material distribution plan and material samples which will have variety and interest. The proposed development has been assessed against national space standards. In conclusion, the development will provide at least a recommended minimum gross internal floor area for each property and will be in general accordance with other recommended technical requirements. Regarding residential amenity, as a guide, the local authority will recommend a separation distance of approximately 20 metres between properties. The nearest properties across the Ashlon Road on Paddocks Rise are at least 21 metres away. The only other neighbouring properties at Ashlon House and Inwood Farm are at least 180 metres away. The development is less conventional in comparison to other developments. There are L-shaped properties and large windows and balconies. Regarding the relationship between the proposed properties within the development, any views from the ground floor windows are generally either towards the front of the property, a more public space, towards a blank side elevation across a public space, towards a non-habitable room, for example an entrance door, or screened by the boundary treatment, where there is direct overlooking a condition has been included for the window to be obscure glazed. Regarding the potential of overlooking a loss of privacy from the first floor of the dwellings, generally side-facing elevations are both blank. Side-facing balconies are at least 10 metres from the boundary. Balconies have views to the front of the property and more public space. Any non-obscure glazed windows are at least 8 metres from the boundary. Balconies which are nearer to the boundary are screened by an overhang or fixed screen. View from non-obscure windows are towards the front of a neighbouring property and more public area. Windows face other obscure glazed windows or are angled towards a non-obscure glazed window or non-habitable room. The design layout are less conventional and provide a pleasant and more communal environment to live. Once the development is built, the first occupiers and any future occupiers will be able to make their own decision as to whether the more open aspect of development is acceptable to them personally. Separation distances and the size and scale of the properties would prevent there being a perception that a neighbouring property is overbearing. Regarding highways, the application is accompanied by a transport assessment which concluded that the forecast traffic generation site will generate a modest number of vehicular movements that would not result in a detrimental impact on the local highway network. Warwickshire County Council Highways initially objected to the development, although in principle they had no objection. They had concerns in respect to the proposed provision of 2 vehicular access points, potential conflict with the National Cycle Network, Route 41, and access to the site for refuse collection vehicles. The applicant has provided additional information to conclude a road safety audit to overcome the objection. The development will include the modification of the secondary access to provide a footway crossover and the inclusion of an access to the neighbouring field. A condition will be included for a Stage 2 road safety audit. The Highway Authority is satisfied with the proposed design of the primary vehicular access, subject to a technical approval of the detailed design and inclusion within the plans of the widening of the existing cycle path. Highways have been requested a Stage 2 and 3 road safety audit for the internal layout to be undertaken to ensure that the safety issues have been satisfactorily resolved prior to first occupation of development. Warwickshire County Council provided a final response of no objection to the development, subject to the conditions and informative notes. Regarding parking, the application site is located within the low access zone. The proposed car parking, cycle storage provision and electric vehicle charging point adheres with the guidance provided for the development typology within a low access zone. National Highways have been consulted and provided a response of no objection to the proposed development. Highways have requested for the cycleway from the primary entrance to the Pegasus crossing to be widened. The widened section will provide pedestrians with suitable and safe access to the Pegasus crossing. The Pegasus crossing provides direct connections with existing active travel infrastructure, including the bridleway and the shared pedestrian and cycle path on the north side of Ashland Road. This widened path will encourage pedestrians to use the Pegasus crossing and prevent conflict between cyclists and pedestrians. Highways consider requesting an additional crossing, however, it's considered to be a disproportionate addition in relation to the size and scale of the development. It would also introduce an additional crossing in close proximity to an existing crossing. The widening of the path provides proportionate mitigation for safe pedestrian and cyclist movements. At the secondary access, highways have requested for a condition to be included requiring bin storage and collection facilities to be located such that they will not obstruct the adjacent public highway and cycle path. Environmental Health will raise no objection subject to conditions for a construction management plan to control noise and vibration emissions from construction activities, to control dust emissions, to reduce mud deposits off-site from vehicles leaving the site, and for a piling risk assessment to be completed and a contamination condition to be included for construction to be stopped if unexpected contamination is found after development has begun. Regarding traffic generation and air quality, noise and vibration, the air quality assessment submitted in conjunction with the application is considered to be acceptable. Negotiations taking place between the tree and landscape officer and the agent to include the submission and amendment to several landscaping schemes. The tree and landscape officer has provided a final response of no objection subject to the inclusion of conditions for the submission of a finalised arboricultural method statement and tree protection plan for for the protection of the retained trees, and a finalised landscape scheme to show exact details of planting throughout the site to include proposed tree, shrub and hedging. The lead local flood authority requested a flood risk assessment and additional details regarding drainage. On receipt of these reports, they have provided a response with no objection, subject to conditions for a verification report for the installed surface water drainage system and a site-specific maintenance plan. As there is potential for the development to disturb archaeological deposits dating from the later prehistoric and Roman periods, Warwickshire County Council Archaeology requests a programme of archaeological works. The Work Service Unit, Warwickshire Police, the Fire Service, Severn Trent, and Warwick Building Control have raised no objection where necessary. These constitutees have requested for informative notes to be included within the decision notice. The Environment Agency have provided no representation. Planning obligations have been sought by the local planning authority to mitigate the impacts of the development and make the development acceptable, to include open space, the provision of off-site open space facilities, indoor sports provision, contribution towards the cost of improving the flooring in the swimming, health and fitness and sports hall, affordable housing, the provision of 5 units of affordable housing, planning and infrastructure, promotion of sustainable travel and to support road safety initiatives, amenity green space, development will include an area of green open space to the rear development. It was considered that the request for an NHS contribution to fund the provision of acute and planned healthcare would not meet the test of the community infrastructure levy regulations. In conclusion, it's considered that the development is in principle acceptable and addresses the key material planning considerations. On balance, it is concluded that development will provide a sustainable development of high quality design which will positively provide social, environmental and economic benefits. Planning obligations set out a legal agreement will address adverse impacts of the development, ensuring it's acceptable in planning terms. The proposal complies with the local plan and NPPF. The recommendation is for the Planning Committee to approve the application subject to conditions and informatives for the completion of a legal agreement to secure the necessary financial contributions and or planning obligations, and for the Chief Officer for Growth and Investment to be given delegated authority to make minor amendments to conditions and to negotiate and agree the detailed terms of the legal agreement, which may include the addition to variation of any removal of financial contributions and or planning obligations outlined in the heads of terms within this report. There's been some, in the addendum, some requests for some amendments, conditions and an inclusion of a condition. To provide clarity, it's requested that condition 28, highways works, be amended from no built construction shall be carried out to no above ground construction shall take place. The applicant proposes a phased delivery of units over approximately 3 years and has subsequently requested for a condition to be included to allow for the development to be built in phases. Condition 37 will allow this. Condition 17, surface water drainage system, verification reports, and condition 33, road safety audit, currently prevents any units being occupied until the development is completed. These conditions will be amended to allow for each phase to be completed and delivered. The drainage and highway elements will be signed off to allow plots to be sold and occupied. The applicants can then continue with the next phase. Condition 17, the first line will be revised from no occupation shall take place to no occupation within a phase as agreed within condition 37 shall take place. And condition 33, the first line to be revised from prior to first occupation development to prior to first occupation of the dwellings within a phase as agreed within condition 37. Thank you, Chair.
Any points of clarification? Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, Chair. Would the officer mind putting up the social housing drawings, please? There's been some chat on social media that it's poor doors housing. It's below standard. People are not happy about it. It would be helpful to see the room sizes, whether it's DDA compliant, how limited is it, given those comments about poor doors housing?
Through you, Chair. The affordable housing is...
I want to actually see the plans of those, not the layout of the whole site, what the size of the units actually look like.
Through you, Chair. Because the properties were different in different types, I put on only the example just to try and give you an idea of it. I can't explain what they look like. They're single story. I know there's been some discussion about whether they're what you could just describe as poor housing. I'll try and explain it a little bit. Initially, for Rugby Borough Council, there is two options. One is to have these houses off-site, or we can have them inclusive within a site like this. And these affordable properties will be on-site. They've been assessed against the technical space standards, and they're found to be of the required size. In terms of DDA compliant, that would fall within building control. It make no sense for them to put in plans for properties that are too small that won't get through building control. I know
just a quick point on it. Why would the housing department buy them if they're below standard?
Can you just repeat that question, please?
Why would the housing department buy them if they're below standard of what we expect in social housing?
They're not below standard. They meet the technical requirements. We have within our SPD we have technical space standards. They comply with those technical space standards. There was been some negotiation with it as well. The initial scheme came in with one block of apartments. We spoke with our housing team. They don't think, or they don't like that because there's communal areas. Communal areas are hard to maintain. Generally as well, we would expect them to be pepper potted around the site. Recommended registered providers don't like this, so they prefer them all to be together so it's easier to maintain. The agent has gone away, they've looked at this, they've come back with five detached dwellings. They are single story, they've all got their own garden, they've all got their own parking spaces, and so, we'd now deem that to be acceptable.
Councillor Carrider.
Thank you, Chair. When you say about the garage space, I believe they are going to give 2 spaces for 2 cars in that area for each property. If that is the case, what is the size of the garage for a car to be parked? Because in the previous examples, where a garage is provided, we can't even park a single saloon standard car. So people who buy the house, they are still parking on the highways rather than parking on the garage. Is this something you could able to consider?
Through you, Chair. The council has parking standards, so any properties with 3 bedrooms or more would need to provide 2 parking spaces. This can be a mixture of hard standing or garages. The general size of a parking space, to my recollection, is 2.5 metres by 4.8. So a garage would have to fit to that size. So providing it does, then we wouldn't be able to object to it. They're providing that. I appreciate your point that with garages, people don't always use them. I think, to be honest, on this site, without going out into detail with it, I think there's probably 2 parking spaces or 3 parking spaces for every property on hard standing. So they're probably over what they require to be.
Councillor Savitama.
Any comments from the Education Department about the schooling provision?
They were consulted. There was no comments to be made.
Okay, Councillor Harrington.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if I missed it on the report, but are these going to have solar panels all over the roofs and also heat pumps or things like that to make it more sustainable? Because we are in, obviously, 2024. I just want to make sure that is, or can we put that as a special requirement to it? Because I think if you're building houses now, this is probably the most key thing we need to have with new houses.
Through you, Chair. We're guided by building control on this. Each property needs to be what they consider to be BREEAM standard. They operate a fabric-first approach, so it's designed to keep houses energy efficiency. This is within a hierarchy. That's what they want first. There will not be putting solar panels on, but there would be provision if people wanted to. But the focus is to have houses that are energy efficient first, rather than start putting things like air source heat pumps and solar panels on.
Can't we put a special requirement on it? Because I think in the day, we are in 2024, right? We get 25 new houses possibly in this area, and we're not putting solar panels on. It's criminal, and I think we need to make sure we can do that. So as a planning committee, can we do that and put those special requirement on that?
We're still on points of clarification. Yeah. When we get into the debate, we could probably.
I can just answer that as a point of clarity. See aware. That's fine. I mean, obviously, to impose any type of planning condition, we would have to have a policy reason for doing it. We don't have a policy in our current local plan that specifically would require a developer to impose solar panels or air source heat pumps. Members may recall in our previous local plan, which was called Core Strategy, we used to have a 10% carbon reduction policy, where one of the ways that developers used to try and meet that was by putting solar panels on and using air source heat pumps. But part of the reason we had that policy was because building regulations hadn't caught up. Building regulations have now caught up, and one of the ways that some developers on new houses, and you'll see this across the borough, try to meet current building regs is by putting on solar panels or by putting air source heat pumps or both, or underfloor heating. So basically it's now governed by building control rather than ourselves. But obviously, yes, it may be that this is one of the types of technology that the developers use in order to meet current building regs.
So have we got no more points of clarification? Should we move into the debate? Another point of clarification, Councillor Sanderson?
Thank you, Chair. You say that it's on a bus route. Can you tell me where the request stop will be? These are 4 and 5 bedroom houses likely to have teenagers. We know Ashlawn School is full, so they're likely to have to go to the free school, which is quite a distance from where this development is going to be. Where is the request stop on that route for these new residents to utilise public transport?
Through you, Chair. We consulted Warwickshire County Council Highways. They haven't requested for another bus stop to go in. I believe there are bus stops down on the road, because I think they're temporary at the moment, aren't they? Okay, yeah. But I believe they're temporary at the moment because this was brought to my attention. But I think, like I say, there is facility to use the bus route.
When we saw the larger plan with the town centre marked up and the site location, somewhere midpoint would be Rugby Free School, which would be less than a mile away, as the crow flies, wouldn't it? Half a mile at the most. Yeah. Okay. Any more points of clarification, or can we move on to the debate? Councillor Bill Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. Just a thought, going back to the question about garages and parking spaces and so on. Is there any restriction on being placed on house owners not to convert garages into accommodation rooms?
We're seeking the answer to that, Councillor Lewis.
Yeah, we have done that in some places previously.
Yes, it's to you, Chair. It's condition 25. It specifically says that the garages shall be not converted to living accommodation and shall remain for the purposes of parking vehicles and storing bicycles.
Thank you very much. I apologise for not asking that in advance, by the way. It's a very good report. Thank you.
Sorry, through you, Chair. There aren't actually that many garages there, so it's quite unusual. But thank you.
Councillor Edwards.
Apologies if I've missed something, but I just wanted to clarify about this archaeological interest. Can you just go into a bit more detail about what the Warwickshire Archaeological Department was saying about this and what preventative measures are in place should there be something of interest there?
Through you, Chair. Yeah, there's a condition on there that states no development shall take place until a written scheme of investigation for a programme of archaeological evaluation work has been submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. So they will have to get an archaeological expert to go out and have a look, provide details of it. That will be a condition they have to discharge, so that will come back to the local authority. We will then consult with archaeology again, and they will say whether they think it's acceptable or not.
So if there is something there, then this whole proposal could cease?
I suppose in worst case scenario it could, but I think, again, it would be proportionate and it would be led by Warwickshire County Council Archaeology on that.
Okay, so let's move into the debate then. Have we got any speakers? Councillor Toby Lawrence.
I think I want to probably talk through the whole of the argument here and leave it to maybe my fellow councillors to ponder on what I'm about to say. This development is on a ridge. The ridge runs from all the way from Kilsby Lane right into the Dunchurch area. It's an area over many, many years we have looked to protect. It is the rural boundary of Rugby, and it's where the open space goes, and it goes down to the Rainsbrook Valley. It is an area, therefore, that we would want to protect in terms of the beauty of Rugby on that side. So the fact that we have over the top of the plateau, the development on Ashlawn Road, we have a lot of development already going on. Further over, we have Southwest Rugby. We have a lot of development going on. We have sufficient development to satisfy the local plan. It is not that we're looking for this area to be an area of development. So back in '93, this was rejected for this very reason, that it shouldn't be developed because it was going across the rural boundary. So it was the impact, therefore, on the character and the visual appearance of the area and the encroachment of overcrowding of that area that was in consideration. A planning permission has been accepted, but it wasn't for a residential development. It was for a retirement area. A retirement area that was therefore providing social need to Rugby. Is also an area of employment. It is a business. It was employing people as well. So replacing what was previously there as an employer. This seems like an extension on an extension, therefore. We're now going to say it's okay because we're already damaging the local area, that it's okay now to start building houses. Just because we had a planning permission. The planning permission was for something else. It was something which was providing social need to the area. Then I have problems with this planning thing, because it doesn't meet our mix. It doesn't respect the mix. It's 75% high-end properties. In one of the areas which is the highest cost, well, highest profit, I should say, sorry, area to sell a house. The Ashlawn estates that are going in outprice the Halton estates, if you ever want to look at the prices. This is not a cheap area to buy a house in. So there has to be a real respect that there has to be, oh, well, there's no need for one-bed houses. Yeah, because they're all going as HMOs. We're taking out the 5-bedroom houses in town centre and creating HMOs out of it to match the need. So they can't sell one-bedroom houses. They can sell a lot of 2-bedroom houses. So they're not meeting the mix here. They're not meeting the mix. They're not even trying to be the greenest place on the planet either, as we've already been discussed. They're not trying to mitigate and please us as a planning committee by going over the limit, and actually we're in a climate crisis here. They're not actually trying to be respectful to us. So I think I've thrown a load of comments out there, okay? I think you're probably going to feel which way I'm leaning here, but I think I would like others to debate some of the subjects I've raised, and over to everybody else.
Yeah, certainly food for thought. Councillor Ward and then Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to follow on from what Councillor Lawrence has just said. Some, again, comments that I've seen is about the social housing side, about how the breakup of the two separate driveways kind of... And I have to say, I do agree with some of the comments I've seen, which is that we're supposed to be integrating social housing, not segregating, and it does give a bit of an impression of that, having that separate driveway. I don't know if any other plans have been submitted on this. I'm assuming not. But, yeah, it just doesn't feel like we're integrating in that respect on the plan.
Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, there are lots of concerns about this site. Yes, it doesn't meet policy, and policy is to integrate housing on our sites. You go down to Holm, you go down to Coulston, you see it's there. We got a small cul-de-sac, but it's a good mix into the area. It's done all the time, and we do it very successfully on this council. My concern is we're picking up some bad habits from other authorities to get this scheme go through as it is. There is also, of course, the sensitivity of the Rainsbrook Valley landscape sensitive area. Urban creep, urban sprawl, it's heading in that direction. It's taking more and more of that area away, which councillors since the 1930s have tried to stop that urban sprawl spreading into our neighbouring villages. So there are question marks about that. I'm also concerned that, again, it shows the roadway going in, but it doesn't show any planting up of hedgerow along that roadway going in, which would have stopped the next field being put forward in the next part of the local plan. And again, further urban sprawl, it would not stay within the confines of that estate. So my feelings were that I felt Councillor Bennett made some good points on his letter to us. I am concerned there isn't adequate access to public transport and those issues, and I'm quite happy if we deferred this for a site visit, Chair, and committee felt happier going out there and seeing it for ourselves.
So what advantage do you think the site visit would have?
Well, we can scale it. You sometimes it's easier to scale up in 3D than it is one-dimensionally on a map, and we can look to see how big some of these social housing will actually be.
Councillor Mrs. Garcia.
I often feel that I'm always Tommy opposite to everybody else on this committee, and whilst I do take on board all of those concerns, I also think that the cost of the properties isn't a material consideration for this committee, for one thing. And I also think we should be taking on board the fact that this land is actually already developed land. It's not that we're trying to build on a piece of greenbelt that isn't developed. This already has buildings in. So, and also a planning permission, which, all right, I take on board was for a nursing home. But really, what are you going to do with that site if you don't develop it in some way? You're not just going to leave it, surely, to be another eyesore in the borough. So I honestly do understand what everybody's saying. I really do. But actually, I think I have to come down on the side of the officer, and I would propose this for approval.
Right, Councillor Bill Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with all the points that Councillor Lawrence put forward, and I agree also with Councillor Sanderson's suggestion for a site visit. My concern is mainly that the Rainsbrook Valley is gradually being affected by development, and I know each application should be taken on its merit, but having housing development in that site kind of extends it down. The original picture, if you like, for that area was that Ashland Road was acting as a kind of a buffer or an extent of the development. There's 860 houses being built on the other side of Ashland Road. That's quite a lot in that area. There's a lot of extra traffic on Ashland Road. It's a very busy road. Trying to keep the development away from the Rainsbrook Valley side is I think, the right thing to do. And perhaps having a site visit to see what the traffic is like on the accesses and so on would be helpful. It's difficult to tell from just drawings and photographs.
Have you finished that? Councillor Harrington.
Thank you, Chair. I actually agree with Councillor Garcia. I think the issue you've got is, yes, in hindsight, it would be amazing to put this back to a field, forest, make it all beautiful, but it's been developed. What do we do with it? Because it's going to sit there like an eyesore. And, I mean, the ideally would be a retirement village, because that will free up. People may want to downsize, and then the next generation can have that, or go for their houses maybe in the town centre or outside. But at the moment, I can't see what else you're going to do with it. I mean, also as well, it was a business there, wasn't it? An insurance company, wasn't it? I mean, how many people are using that road each day going into there and out of there? So if you're only having 25 properties and you had workforce of about 50 to 100, how much traffic was that causing on that road? So really, once that business is gone, you are reducing traffic. Obviously, this was before the development on National Road. But for me personally, I don't like the way the design is, because I think the integration, which is what Councillor Ward said, makes sense. It should be integrated. It shouldn't be just in a corner. And I think the design could be a lot better. I'm very disappointed at the developer not putting any solar panels in and things like that, because at the end of the day, it's yet again, people might say, oh, we need regulation. We don't want regulation, but if you don't tell people what to do, they won't do it. And this is what developers are doing at the moment, which is frustrating. If you see a lot of the new houses in Rugby, where's all the solar panels? Where's everything else? It's poor, okay, in this day and age. But I'm torn because the reason being is, what are we going to do with it? What are we going to do? Are we just going to leave it there just for years and years and years? And that's going to be no good to anyone, is it, really?
Okay, were you in the throes of seconding Councillor Garcia, or...?
Yeah, I'll go second.
Councillor Lawrence again.
I think I'm minded that the actual quality of what is being proposed is not good enough. Okay? And therefore, I think what I would be proposing a rejection of this, based upon I would like the developer to come back with a better proposal. We have concerns about the number of amount of social housing, the mix of the social housing, and I don't believe that it creates the balance that I'm looking for the fact that we are developing something in an area we would want to protect, which is the Rainsbrook Valley area. So I'm not seeing the balance that I would want from this. And also, there's no employment here. The previous planning permission was for a retirement place where there would be a level of employment. I'm not seeing the balance. So I would I would propose rejection of this, looking for the developers come back with an improved plan on mix of social housing, the quality of the social housing, the integration of the social housing, the green level of this development, something that would, in my mind, improve the balance.
Can I just maybe do a few points of clarification as well? The initial scheme is the middle one, the extant permission. That means that can be built. That permission lasts forever, so that can be built. When I originally had pre-app discussions on this, it was for a volume house builder that came in who wanted to put 50-odd houses on, or whatever it was. The second scheme, you can see down the bottom, the current application, is on a similar footprint, so it won't impact on the Rainsbrook Valley. So I understand what you're saying about the protection of it, and I'm in agreement with that. But this is previous developed land. It's an extant permission. I think the other thing that, again, I understand what you're saying, but being involved in the application process, the developers on this, we don't really want to inhibit design because they are something a bit different. They're similar to the ones on Bilton Fields Farm. If we were to, they have to do this sort of like low density development. Like I say, it is a little bit different to what other developers do, which I think sometimes unavoidably makes it more difficult to try and do things like integrate in the affordable housing in there. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that the process has gone on a long time. We've tried to make improvements with it, and this, we've kind of got to where we are with it. I don't know if that kind of helps in your decision making. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Sanderson, then Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. The reason why I moved deferment, I haven't said yes and I haven't said no to the scheme. I'm keeping it open. But I do feel deferment and a site visit will give us a much better understanding of the locality. It'll be a much better understanding of where the social housing is going to fit into the scheme. We can look at things. I looked at the road that's going in, and there didn't appear to be any hedgerow or planting alongside that new road that's going in, which means it's going to be it'll be very open from that one side. Again, is there room to put a request stop in there if we ask for one? So all I'm asking for is a deferment and a site visit, and for us not to, because members are clearly split tonight, not to force a split on a yes or no vote at this point in time.
We've got Councillor Bill Lewis next.
Just a little bit of clarification on something, if I may. A number of speakers have mentioned, if we don't approve of this, what's going to happen to the site in the future? What's going to be built on it, and so on. That isn't anything that we need to consider, surely, at this stage. We are considering the planning application that's come in, not what might happen to the site at some future time.
That's absolutely correct. I think that what the officer was actually saying is just verifying what actually could be built there, because it's got an extant permission on it. But you are absolutely right. That is a material consideration.
We've got Councillor Srivastava next, and then Councillor Mrs. Garcia.
I support the proposal of differing this proposal and a site visit as proposed by Councillor. I think it'll give a better understanding and see what the issues on the site visit.
Councillor Mrs. Garcia, could you just move your microphone around so we can hear you?
Well, I suppose because I already know the site and have been to the site on quite a lot of occasions, I don't actually see what benefit a site visit will be. I get what you're saying, Councillor Sanderson, about the hedgerow, but the other side is completely open where that new 860 houses are. So, something like that. So I don't really I can't really see the purpose in that. But what I was trying to put over was not the fact that we had to consider it because there was something else there, but actually something else can be built without us saying one way or another. Is this better than what was there before?
I'm leaving it open until after the site visit.
Neil, you should just agree with me, you know you want to. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you to everyone that's commented. I was particularly taken by Councillor Lawrence's perspectives on the fact that where the road is going into the rural area where the original purpose was a residential retirement village. Start putting more houses on there, there is a tendency for a slippery slope. So on that basis, I'm happy to second Councillor Lawrence's proposal to reject the proposal.
So we've got a motion on the table, which is we've got a proposer and a second to approve. This is the proposal, which will go first. Councillor Harrington, did you want to say anything?
Great question. If we do reject this tonight, what's the likelihood of them appealing and winning, and how much of that costs the taxpayers?
I mean, obviously, I've got to reiterate this very strongly to members tonight, that costs is not something that is a material consideration. She shouldn't take that into account. However, obviously, you've got an officer who's an expert who's giving you, suggesting that this should be approved. You've obviously got a development already there, which is your fallback provision, which obviously I heard Paul telling you. So that is also quite significant here. So, as I say, this cost can't affect your decision tonight, but I would say that yes, there is a very strong likelihood that they would appeal and obviously be approved.
Okay, so we've also got a proposer and a seconder to refuse the application, but I need to have policy reasons for refusal.
I thought that was approved.
Yes, but before we go to the vote, and should the vote go the other way, then...
Well,
Right. From my perspective, for me, I have no appetite to go on a site visit. I know the building, the whole area, very, very well indeed. And going by last site visits we've had 3, 4, sometimes only 2 members of the committee have turned up. So unless 100% of the committee wish to turn up, I'm not going to propose that we or.
Well, we're just taking this.
Okay. So. Bearing in mind, I remember it right from the early 1970s when Inwood's house, I think, was a private house with 2 drives, in and out drive, and over the years we've found that one of the drives has been more prominent and the other one has almost been blocked up. But Councillor Garcia, did you want to say any?
Well, just to sort of one more point, you know, the extant permission is 51 units. We are being asked to approve half of that on a already developed site, and I just think we perhaps haven't taken a lot of that into account.
Councillor Simon Ward and then Councillor Becky Mowdis.
Thank you, Chair. It was just really quick. I was just going to go back and say I do like the design. I do like the design of the site. It was just, my point was just about the social housing. But I just wanted to get that in as a point. But
sorry, in connection with design. No, it's all right. No, I'll mention it now. It's just a point of clarification from obviously interim legal manager. What was mentioning, Dana, was the relationship between the affordable housing and the market housing that's there. Obviously, as the plans show, it is on 2 axes. Both axes exist at the moment. Obviously, they're designed. The materials that will be used are to make it so it does look more integrated, rather than being a more distinct type of development, type of tenancy or occupancy or style of property compared to others. So it is meant to use materials and designs that do actually reflect each other. One of the reasons I think the affordable housing is grouped together is because registered social landlords, and obviously I believe from Paul's presentation we haven't had interest, but the council itself has had interest. Is that they prefer it where they are grouped together, because whilst officers prefer pepper potting, the registered social landlords prefer it if it's all together from a maintenance point of view. And obviously the issue with this is that I understand the open space and obviously some of the access roads are linked to probably a management agreement and things like that, which obviously the market housing would pay into, but affordable housing providers don't want to pay into that because it's an extra burden then to the occupiers of those units. So that's another reason why it's actually been created in the way it actually has. But I think from a design perspective, we are comfortable that it will appear as an integrated part. There's also an internal pedestrian link, so the residents of those affordable housing can access the rest of the site and the open space at the back. So it's not like they would have to go out of the site and then come back in, down the main, or I suppose the first main access into the site. So they would actually have access within the site as well to try and create a more integrated community.
Thanks for that explanation. Councillor Becky Mowdis.
Thank you, Chair. I initially had reservations over the social housing being in one part, but after conversations with the officer, similar to what Richard's just said there, with the pedestrian access, there is full access to the site. It's literally their own private driveway for 5 houses, which I like the design. I like the landscaping, the ponds on site. They've kept all of that on the site rather than moving it off site, which is great. The biodiversity is all there. And as my colleague Councillor Garcia said, to go from 51 units to 25, I think I support that as well. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs. Hassel.
I actually think that the social housing is 20%, which is what we like to have. I also think it's a great advantage that they're single stories, because we do not have much social housing in single story properties, and there is a demand for it for people that aren't as able. So I actually think it's a very good design, and I think it will integrate nicely. And another thing, it isn't just 51 units on the existing planning permission, it's 51 units plus a care home of another 60 rooms, as I understand it. So this is a considerably smaller development.
Okay, so we've got, we'll move to the vote. We've got recommendation with approver and a seconder for approval. And all those in favour of approval, please show. And those against, please show.
So you have a casting vote.
So I'm going to use my casting vote and move to approve.
So that's so we just confirm that's approved.
So that has been approved. 6 votes for, 6 votes against, with my casting vote. Thank you, Paul, for that. I know it's a bit of a long debate. That's a good job we didn't have half a dozen applications on the agenda tonight. But we'll move on now to item number 5, which is applications, advance notice of site visits.
No further to report, Chair.
Delegated decisions. Thank you all very much. Can we switch off the stream now, please? And that concludes the business of the planning meeting this 10th of January.